Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. In this episode, I've got Talos Mobius here with me, and we're actually going to look through the Origin mobile suits to see what could be possibly put into GBO2. How's it going, Talos?
Very good. I've been quite busy, but I'm glad to be back on here. It's always fun talking to you and Stephen when we get the chance to. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's a rarity that we speak about and talk about GBO2 in general.
Yeah, I know.
Videos.
Yeah, and this sparked because there was some apparent leak of a mobile suit from Origin to be in GBO2, right? And this is the Rumbaral.
The Bugu for Rambaral, that Rambaral piloted specifically, was leaked on the mobile tab, where pretty much it shows you the newer mobile suits in the Japanese website of GBO2.
Yeah.
So that sparked a lot of conversation, and I'm really looking forward to it because it opens another door of possibilities for new mobile suits.
I know, because it is pretty crazy the mobile suits we have been getting, some like stuff from manga that we don't expect. You know, they even have like the Xeon-eyed the Gundams that were from SD generation game. You know, so there are deep cuts, but since they're doing Origin, I figure we would dive in, look at some other Origin suits. So let's do that. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna look at the list on the wiki, but first I want to start with some main ones, some that you pointed out. For instance, the RCX-7602 gun cannon first type.
Now, the reason I suggested the gun cannon test type is because it's a really interesting unit. It looks like your average, gun cannon. The difference is single cannon on the backpack, and if we notice, the fists are a bit different, head is different. But generally, if we look into its general setup, I'd say it would work as a general. I'll say that straightforward. A general type gun cannon. We already have one with a heavy type D, but generally this mobile suit already lacks beam weapons, unlike most gun cannons. Again, like the heavy type D does lack beam weapons. But the extra interesting part is this one had multiple weapons rather than just, having the preset ones that every gun cannon we've seen has.
Yeah, even looking at these pictures, I guess these are scenes from when it showed up in one of the anime of Origin.
Yep.
One cool looking shield, a little bit different, but I like how it's like a basic type shield, but it has like the different armaments even on its shoulders. I'm seeing different cannon types, but it seems to be because it's an earlier type, like the singular shoulder, whereas the other shoulder will have another weapon. So like you said, there's a bunch of different weapons potentially for this.
The right shoulder usually carries a Gatling gun, which is an interesting one. The left shoulder seems to be interchangeable, which could be a primary weapon. The right hand always carries a bullpup machine gun, which can be just another sub-weapon. It has a lot of variety for what it is. It's a rarity that we see that the mobile suit has interchangeable weapons for shoulders. We usually just see them outright being handheld.
Yeah, that is that's why I think this is a good pick of yours, because of the different weapons, the customizability, but also what you brought up, the hands, how they're like the manipulators. You would see something on like a Barlant, or there's probably other mobile suits.
Overall, the Zionic mobile suits, and Zionic mobile suits have usually similar arms. Like the Cassia has such arms. We see the Zigox having similar arms.
Even like the Rose and Zulu in a way, even though it's bigger. But yeah,
they're close, but you can make the relations to that, I guess you could say, in that matter. And as you noticed, there was also already a 3D model for where you had that little pixel to the far right. That one, it was from a Gundam diorama, which means that we can even say that there are already models for it, which works in that matter.
Okay. Well, okay, so this is a good one. Let's remember gun cannon early type, and just real quick, like for the lore of Gundam in general, this, like it says, this was early on in the war, like even I would say before the 1 year war really started, or would you say right after it started? Because I know there's different interpretations of when it started, I guess.
So in the origin, technically Mobile Suit development started before the war fully started, like before it became apparent, before Mobile Suit started popping up a lot. So this was when the Federation early on was fighting Zaku once and Bugu. So we hadn't even reached Zaku 2 territory, which means that technically it was early at the war, which we see also down there it says first in 0078, which means before the war, but there was already combat happening. So
right,
it's difficult to say with the origin when the war actually started because guerrilla tactics also count as war.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm just looking at the artwork of the high grade box. This is a cool looking suit. That's the thing about Origin. It's taking those classic designs and reinterpreting them. All right, well, let's jump to this one. This was my first thought when we were talking about this before. I was like, well, they could add the RX-7802 because one of its neat features is having that shoulder cannon. So it can be a different way to use the Granddaddy Gundam.
Not only that, but the Gundam is on that in this version, first of all, as you can see, it has a different beam rifle. It can use the gun cannon's beam rifle for the Origins, which is a really interesting factor. But the extra interesting factor is that it had enough power on the reactor to not only be able to use both beam sabers at the same time, but keep itself at full operating power, which some of the original Gundam at times is referred to lack in doing so. And as you can see, the different variations of the types, like the early type, middle type, and the late type, also have different armors. Now we can choose whichever of the three, but my favorite is the one that you clicked on, the rollout colors.
Yeah.
Which is often referred to as being the Gundam that Tomino wanted to have.
Right. Yeah, because this was before they, were like, hey, let's put some primary colors in there to get the kids interested. But so, one thing, would you see them releasing the RX-78-2 as types? Like it could be like, here is the early type, here is the middle type, like separate ones that might be different classes. Do you see that happening?
It might. We never really know. But if that does happen, that means we're going to see probably a raid in 2 generals or 2 raids in general. It's going to be difficult to have a support, even with the single cannon, because the Gundam still, even in this version, it still was a very high performing unit. You can see that they added a new Gundam with the heavy weapon system as a support, but it honestly doesn't feel like a support in GBO2. Although maybe if they do that like this, maybe a 4-star support Gundam with the incredible mobility, I can see that.
Yeah, it makes me think too, like it could be a difference of different types, or it's just there's different weapons you can equip, because I'm seeing where, there's the options for the kind of the not the shoulder, but up by the collarbone where they have some weapons there too, and on the wrist, because I know with the model kits I've built the Origin master grade and the high grade, and those are options that you can add the weapons. So that would be cool that you could do that in the game, or let's say it just comes with all of them, so it's almost like multiple types of Vulcans that you could use at any time to continue to suppress. I would almost see that as like a raid type also, where you're kind of close in, kind of zooming around, suppressing enemies with all the different Vulcan types.
The left shoulder is called the shoulder magnum, which was just a very heavy caliber machine guns, whereas the left arm, which you saw, it's also an arm Vulcan, which means the Granddaddy Gundam here had so many weapons that honestly it would make something like the full armor Gundam Blast at times.
That's why I really like this Origin Gundam. The master grade was my second or third, and it's just the ultimate version of the Gundam. Like I don't even care Origin or not. It's just like, here's the Granddaddy with all these weapons and that shoulder thing. I love it. Okay.
And if it's the thing with the cannon on the shoulder, we're gonna lack a single beam saber. But if it's the one without the cannon or the Gatling, because it is interchangeable again, the Origin does that very often, where weapons are practical as well, which I give it that much credit.
But oh yeah, keep going, because you just gave me an idea.
If it was the double beam sabers, it could be the raid. That's what I was gonna say.
Well, okay, so yeah, that's interesting because it could go that way, which is kind of typical. But the other thing that you just gave me the idea of is, let's say you're like in GBO2, you can have separate weapon loadouts. Like you could choose the shortcuts or whatever. And I feel like it would be interesting is, let's say you chose to use the double beam sabers. Well, then all of a sudden the cannon won't be usable. Yeah, it's almost like you can do like a custom sort of role within that class or something. I don't know.
GBO2 does that actually. For an example, if you equip the Rezel beam rifle with the Zeta plus A1, you actually get a secondary beam saber because the Rezel's beam rifle turns into a long beam saber.
Oh wow! See, another little tidbit you can only find out at your channel, which is linked below. But yeah, all those little things, it's crazy. Okay, so Granddaddy for me, that's my number one pick. Let's look at this other one, the YNS. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the WAF always looked goofy to me, but please proceed.
Oh yeah, so the WAF, WAFF. I can't even say I guess I've seen this, but never really spent too much time with it because it developed from the mobile worker. So would you say it's almost like the first time that they developed?
It was the first mobile suit. It was literally the very first mobile suit.
Yep, that is, and that would be excellent to add in there. I mean, think of having situation battles where people are pitting the first mobile suits against each other.
Yeah. And the WAF did not have any major, weapons. It was just the Hit-Hawk, a bazooka, and the shield, if I'm correct. It was a very simple mobile suit, and that's what makes it, I think, a very enticing thing, because you can give it skills, you can focus on it being a playstyle machine, what we call a skill monkey at times in GBO2, where it has a list of skills, which makes it interesting to play.
Yeah, and I got to say, I love the look at it, but at the same time, Origin just looks good anyway. But
oh yeah,
I love that. I love how they're conscious about the evolutionary design of these mobile suits.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a pretty simple unit. That's why I just thought it would be an interesting one to talk about. It was the very first mobile suit. It is a very unique mobile suit.
Yeah, and you would consider it to have the super low cost anyway. So what would be interesting about that is introducing more new low cost suits to make, kind of revitalize, I guess, low cost battles. Because I tend to skip it so I can use the crazier units. But if they're adding in more interesting units into the low costs, yeah, that would be cool. Okay, this one, the MSO4 Bugu. Now, the leak was this, but Rombaral custom, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the one that we got leaked.
Yeah, which sick looking.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting because it almost looks like as they developed, and this is probably what happened, maybe like they developed that mobile worker into that WAF, and then they're like, okay, well, here's like a Zaku and here's a Goof, like coming from that.
Yeah. If you notice it, it looks perfectly like a Zaku one, just with heavier armor, and that's what generally the Bugu is described as. And it had a very large variety of weapons, although it will say here just machine gun and a Hit-Hawk and a shield, but we've seen it use things like bazookas, double wielding shields. You'll see a variety with it, and that's why I think that it's a really cool thing, because it can be a low cost unit with a variety of weapons. And again, the early units can be really easily done skill monkeys to have a little bit of a variety and having a bit of fun. Also, something really interesting, if you look into one of the pictures, the Bugu is seen to use a 100mm that is later used by the Federation, which is really funny in this version.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Those look like the Federation guns that you would see.
Yeah, that's the similar to the 100. It's exactly the same model as the 100mm machine gun.
And something else I want to add too, which I don't know if this was conscious or not, but if we look at the head down here at the bottom right, it almost looks like it's like proto Gelgoog in that kind of antenna. So maybe they were taking some of that technology and incorporating it into that variant of Xeon mobile suits.
And to add a lot more to that, the shield is held to the back of the arm, which is something that the Zuda does as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, good call on that. Yeah. I love the looks of those shields. Man, yeah, these Origin suits look great. Okay.
Simplicity is usually great.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to this one. This one would be an interesting discussion because this is Char's Zaku 1.
Yes.
Now, what would you see it as, I guess, cost-wise? What would it go up to?
I will be honest, right now the Zaku Type S is a 250 cost general, so we could easily make it a 250 cost braid, let's just say.
Again, another way to kind of make the low cost more interesting again.
The only major problem that there would be with this whole scenario is the Zaku 1, it has a very large variety of weapons in this universe. It has 2 different types of machine guns. The Heat Hawk, as always, shields, but it also comes with bazookas, and the shoulder armor was used as a melee weapon.
Oh, okay. So that reminds me of that one unit where it's like Foot has kind of a melee thing where you could maybe do some sort of charge, or maybe it adds to the tackle. Maybe then the tackle does more damage.
Maybe. We do have a claw tackle. Maybe we can get a spike tackle. Who knows?
Yeah. Because in GBO2, we've seen that they're willing to add in things we wouldn't even expect. So,
yeah, for an example, a thing that always fascinates me is the AOZ shield booster.
Oh yeah,
and I find it really cool having a shield with thrusters. That is
and I
cool.
love the nuance with that, because that adds weight, but that gives you thrust. But then you could lose it, and then that could change how you play your mobile suit.
Correct.
Okay, well, cool. So those are the main ones you picked out, but I have this list here of mechanics. Now, this is from the wiki. Could be things that are missing. Any other interesting suit?
I'd say fair enough. I forgot to add the Zaku 2 Hammer build type. We can't see the Zaku 2 Commander type because I think the page is unfinished, but the Zaku 2 Commander type, we actually see. Yeah, it's unfinished, unfortunately.
Oh, so this is more obscure then, in a way. Let me see if I do a search on it and that it...
It's Source Zaku 2, actually. If you type down the origin, you can see the rest, but it's Source Zaku 2 from the origin.
Oh, I see. So here I'm on I don't think this is the origin, but I guess it's kind of the same thing.
So the major difference is that the Zaku 2 Origins had also chest Gatling.
Oh, okay.
So there is a variety in the mechanics of the Zaku 2 Commander type from the Origin, which again is why it can work if you add it from, obviously in comparison to Zaku 2 Type S, you can add the Origin variant.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we see that a lot where we'll see these suits that seem like they're the same, but they're not. And it just gives a whole new suit you can use in battle. Yeah, so this is a good example of there's some really interesting suits out there, and it's the community or people that are out there that can fill this stuff out. So if someone's watching this that likes to fill in wiki stuff, there's one.
The Zaku 2 Hammer build type, which is right beside to the left of it, is the one that we see Mas Ortega, the Black Tri-Stars use. And you can see already a large variety right here on the equipment. This is Gaia's version, which had multiple missiles. This is the version that Mas had, which is the anti-ship rifle. And then Ortega's has the giant halberd, heat halberd specifically. And those are just 3 of them. You can also see SARS Zaku 2 as well here.
Ooh.
Which already you can see that it has bulkier legs, and if you notice, there are 2 shoulder Vulcans one on each shoulder. So again, a wide variety of mobile suits in differences. You can see already a different backpack than the rest. It's a much larger backpack than the smaller. The other Zakus have a smaller backpack, so you can have this a high mobility type. There's a variety. That's why I say that it's difficult to say GBO2 will run out of mobile suits.
Oh yeah, and so what they could do. Remember when the AT guy came out and they had those variants? They could do that with the Black Tri-Stars easily.
And we are not done with all of the AT guy variants. That's the worst part.
I know. And you know what? This also reminds me of the Southern Cross, because they could then easily take all the suits from the Southern Cross and be their own mobile suits released on there. So
speaking of the irony, if you go under profile, you can see that you can go to the Southern Cross ones. The surface type is the Southern. So what it has developed into? The surface type Zaku.
There we go. Yeah. Wow.
Even more of them to add.
Yeah, because we could look at them, see the weapons. Look at something like this where it has the typical machine gun, but could have some more interesting melee combos. Like maybe you're shooting, and then as you're walking up, it's a quicker way to do a melee attack with that rifle.
The Zaku 3 and the Arjarja ironically have a beam rifle with a bayonet underneath it. So
that's
they use the bayonet as a melee weapon. We also hit sabers, and we know that those Zakus are also hover types, which add even more variety to having a lot more hover types.
Yep.
This one having a rifle, a large rifle.
Yeah, that is awesome right there.
So you can have snipers. You can. This one had double hit hooks. I remember that one.
Yep.
This one had the hit knife and the large drum. This one had the bazooka. You get the idea. There is so much to cover because GBO2. If we sit here to talk all about stats every day, I can honestly go on for hours.
Yeah.
I just am trying to restrain myself from talking about, hey, maybe this is going to be a general and this is what it would have. Like, for an example, I can tell you for sure, most, if not all, surface types will have optimized cooling efficiency, which is something that you see on ground units mostly where they don't overheat as quickly and they cool down better. Sorry, the best way to put it is that they use less fuel while on ground, pretty much.
Okay, so that's something you would think they would have to keep in mind just because of gravity. Yep. Okay, well, so yeah, that was a quick look. Before I move on, any other suit we didn't call out that you think would be a good addition? Although I think we hit the main ones.
Yeah, we hit the main ones, especially for the OVA. I mean, if we are to talk about the manga, it will take a lot longer because manga touches on a lot more. We have like the Gundam FST, which is a really cool one. We have the American Patrol Gundam. Like, even just the Gundam variations are pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. The variations of the heavy Gundam as well. There is a lot. There is a lot
GMs.
Of. Oh yeah, the especially because we have Jim close combat types, we have Jim long range types. Just the basic Jim is getting multiple variations, and we're not even talking about Jim Striker and the likes.
Oh, I know. There's so much. Well, anyway, thanks, Talos, for meeting with me to do this. This was a lot of fun to kind of go through these origin suits. But yeah, for those watching, leave a comment below. What's an origin suit from these that you would want to see, or do you have any ideas of how they would incorporate them to GBO2? Because I know by now they can really do anything when it comes to suits.
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, thanks, Talos. Link to Talos' channel below, a pivotal member of Gundam Explained. So if you haven't subscribed to his channel, please do so. And then he's always at the Discord answering questions, so join there if you haven't. But
thank you for having me.
Yeah, oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Have a great day.